The following was recorded in front of a live studio audience at the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe. This is the United Podcast Network.
Welcome to Conor Commentary, a hilarious take on news, politics, sports, and current events. It's time to buckle up. Here's Conor.
All right, guys, here we go. Week 5. I'm welcoming back James Michael Samra. This is what, appearance 3?
Appearance 3. Week 5 is my lucky number.
I guess so. I was going to say, 2.5. One time we had Leo with you. Now you're back.
Good point.
So
five.
This time we're going to delve into your specialty, though, right? Like finding your identity, finding your passion in life. Like,
yes, sir.
We'll hope a bunch of people find themselves today. Ed said we might even find Nemo.
Dual purpose.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right, but before we got to do Troll of the Week. And here we go again with the weird names, man. It's so funny because this time it's on Facebook. So this is actually the person's name, I presume. And his name was Xander with a Z. So not like Xander Bogaerts with an X. Xander Tower. And he said, "This is the most boring podcast I've ever watched. I've listened to more interesting conversations waiting for the tea," which I told him, I'm like, I don't find that insulting, because if I ever wanted to listen to like an interesting conversation in public, I would literally go to like Sullivan Square in Charlestown and just sit there. Like, is there a better place to like people watch than the train station?
That's what the most random stuff happens, is when you're there.
Exactly. So if there's going to be any like interesting conversations that might be more entertaining than this podcast, it's going to be found at the train station.
Plus he still listens. So.
Yeah, exactly. So I appreciate the feedback from Xander Tower. I'm excited to see what name we get next week, because so far we've had like Bruce Wayne, Incredible Bat Speed was one of them. But these are all Twitter handles. So Twitter handles, people don't use their real name. But this was on Facebook. So I looked it up. It was a real kid.
At least he had the guts to stand behind his own name.
Exactly. It was not an egghead, which I think might be a first, because I think this is the first time someone ever trolled the show and they actually showed their face and used their name.
Hey, props, Xander.
I was just going to say, credit to Xander, Xander Tower, Mr. Tower out there. Thank you. Then we got to get into Beat Pete. So my mom lost to Pete for the first time last week. He went 10-6. My mom went 9-7. But I still added it all up from the 3-week total. So going into week 4, Pete is 28-19-1. My mom 37-1. So still up 2 games going into week 4. So we're holding the lead. I got to keep track of that. Then let's see. So Thursday night we have Green Bay, Philadelphia. We're going Green Bay. Then it's the Giants, Washington. My mom's going to take the Giants there. She must have seen Daniel Jones take over. That kid looked good. Did you see that, Ed?
I did not.
You didn't?
You know, I kind of follow football, but I only watch the Patriots.
Right.
So, I'll go and check the scores really to see how it changes the standings with regard to the Patriots.
Right. So you don't have 3 fantasy teams and can't miss a single play?
No.
Okay, just checking. I know some people are like that.
Well, I mean, Connor, I have fantasies, but they're not about football.
That's fair.
That's fair. Yeah. All right, then we got Baltimore, Cleveland. I'm going Baltimore. Patriots, Buffalo. That's another easy pick. I know the Bills are 3-0, but good luck to them. We're going New England there. Then it's Colts, Oakland. We're going to go the Colts on that one. Houston, Carolina. We're taking Houston. Atlanta, Tennessee. It's going to be a good game. We're taking Atlanta. Kansas City, Detroit. We're going to roll with Kansas City. Patrick Mahomes is unstoppable at this point. Chargers, Miami. You got to take the Chargers. Miami, that poor team might not win a game this year. The Rams, Tampa Bay. We're going Rams. Then we got Seattle, Arizona. I'm going to go Seattle, another team that might not win a game over there in Arizona. Minnesota, Chicago. That's going to be a great game. My mom's taking Minnesota. Me, personally, I like the Bears, Jimmy, if you're watching. Denver, Jacksonville. My mom's going Denver. Then Dallas, New Orleans. My mom's going to take Dallas. That's going to be a really good game as well. Pittsburgh, Cincinnati on Monday night. Both teams 0-3. That's crazy. My mom is taking Pittsburgh. So those are the picks. All right, let's get into it. So just to start it off, man. So like, I know a lot of people, and me myself in life in the past and stuff, you just feel like you're not living like your full potential.
Yeah.
And like you're just kind of complacent Like you might have a job, it's all right, but you don't love it. Same thing with like relationships. You're in a relationship and you might like the girl or guy or whatever it might be, but it's not like spectacular.
Yeah.
And I feel like so many people are afraid to like make the jump and actually leave. So I actually wrote a blog similar to this a little while ago, and it was like complacency is almost worse than like misery, because if you're absolutely miserable, I feel like you'll be like, I'm so miserable, I have to do something.
Right.
And then if
Yeah.
you're super happy, then you're good, you're already there. But if you're just like coming from a place of like, yeah, it's good, it's fine, nothing to see here. It's like
Yeah,
that dog that's
yeah,
on
yeah,
fire,
yeah,
and it's
yeah,
like there's no
Right, yeah.
nothing here. So like,
Yeah.
what do you think of it? Because I know you've been able to turn yourself into an entrepreneur. You had jobs you hated before, and
Yeah.
now you're actually like living the example. So like, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, and I think first of all, that's a great point with the complacency, because it is kind of that like there's no oh shit moment of I have to actually move and take action.
Right.
Because it, like you said, it's like, yeah, all right, well, it's better than nothing.
Right.
Right. Like, okay, I'm in like a mediocre job, mediocre relationship, but it's better than nothing.
Exactly.
And I think it's, and we talked about this beforehand, and like I sound like a broken record constantly talking about identity, and
Right.
it comes down to identity. Because if it's like, this is what I deserve, this is what I can accomplish, this is who I am, basically, it's lukewarm for most people.
Yes.
Because we never get into that process growing up of like, okay, you want to be an astronaut.
Yes. Yeah.
And then by the time you're 7 years old, it's like somebody's telling you, oh, that's not really realistic, and blah,
Yes.
blah. Well, some 7-year-old kid became an astronaut.
Right.
Hundreds, thousands of them did, right? So it's like, but we go along this path where we all of a sudden we kind of start to sort of chip off those pieces of those dreams and goals, and just sort of become kind of like a watered down version of ourselves.
I agree.
And
It's
stay
like
there.
conforming.
It's
to like what
100%
society, like the 99% of people, like what society wants you to be.
Yes, and then you start to doubt yourself,
Right.
Because now all of a sudden everybody around you is kind of like, they're giving up on different things, and oh well, if Steve or Susie couldn't do that, then I probably can't either. So
Right.
I should probably just go into this like vanilla existence. And it translates into like what you're supposed to do, right? "Quote unquote" supposed to do.
Yes.
And-
I love that quote unquote, because it's really what it is, like what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, there's no like, when you really strip away all of, and I get like really deep and philosophical into this stuff sometimes, because like when you really strip away all the constructs of society, right? There is literally nothing. There
Right.
is your existence, and that is it. Right? Like there's not town lines, there's not state lines, there's not country lines. That shit is just imaginary lines drawn in the sand. It
Yes.
does not exist. Money is a construct, time is a construct. All this stuff is just like, I'm not getting into all the, multiverse theories or whatever.
Yeah, right.
But when you really start to think, like, what does it really matter if someone is going to, judge me or tell me this path I'm supposed to take? Who says?
Right. And do you think a lot of people actually hold back because of fear of others, because they don't want to, like, it's like everyone does the same thing. So you get the job, you go to college, you get the job, you get the house, you get the wife, and it's just like what you're supposed to do. So I feel like a lot of people are probably like afraid to put themselves out there in a different like atmosphere, or I don't know what the word is for it, like different path in life than what's like what you're supposed to do.
I honestly think a more powerful answer than me saying yes or no would be the people listening be like, have I actually held myself back? And I think that's the problem, is the lack of willingness to be fully honest, right? Like I'm talking like brutally honest, and sit down with yourself and be like, what is it that's going to make me not just happy, but fulfilled?
Right.
Like when I'm with myself, by myself, when I'm alone, am I okay with the person that I am? Am I happy with the person that I am?
Right.
And my answer would be yes. I think most people hold themselves back from that, and I also believe that if most people were completely honest with themselves, they would agree.
Right.
Because they'd be like, yeah, maybe I don't dress a certain way, I don't walk or talk or act or do a certain thing, or maybe I just want to work at a pet rescue,
Yeah.
but I couldn't drive a Mercedes if I did. So I want people to think that I'm doing well,
Right.
instead of doing good.
Right. So when it comes down to it, it's like you're almost doing things more to just impress other people in a way. And I think I put this earlier. It's like the word success is such a subjective word.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, it's like you're successful, but it's like in what capacity? Because a lot of people base that solely on like how much money you make a year.
Right.
So what if you do make, a couple $100,000 a year, but you work at a job you don't like the majority of your week for the rest of your life?
Right.
Like when you really look at it from like another standpoint, it's like, is that what success is? Like, is that success?
And most of the people that I work with directly one-on-one are, I always say they're professionally successful and personally conflicted. Right? Because they excel so much professionally because they've dove into it for this exact reason. They've dedicated their lives to it. And then they wake up one day and they're like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Whose life am I living? Right? So it's like, so the definition of success changes along the way, like you're saying. And I think to avoid that, if you can really define it for yourself, because like you said, yeah, okay, well, traditionally successful means you're doing well, you've got the house, you got the car, whatever it is,
Right.
or the condo in the city, whatever. But it's like, is that really what you want?
Right. I mean, for me personally, that's what I would want. If,
for sure.
If it comes with like not having to conform at the same time.
Right.
So then it's like,
Right.
to me, that's like massively successful because there's two things. There's monetary success and then there's like happiness success.
Yes.
If you can combine the both, congratulations to you.
So I have some knowledge in this area.
All right,
Bring
let's
it on.
hear it.
Well, let's see. About 2.5 years ago,
Yep.
I was working as a VP of software engineering
Oh, nice.
at a medical software company.
Mm-hmm.
I was one of those guys making in excess of $200,000 a year.
So you were monetarily successful.
Monetarily successful, but flying to California twice a month. Yeah, I mean, just exhausted with the whole thing.
Right.
And then my company happened to get bought, and I thought, well, this isn't going to go well.
Yeah.
I'll give it a quarter and see where it goes. And one day I just decided, you know what? I'm done with this.
Yeah.
This is not making me happy. I'm chasing, okay, I need more money every year because that's how I was defining success. So
Right.
walked in and said, okay, I'm going to be leaving the company. And my boss said to me, oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Where are you going? I said, just to my house. I sat around for 6 months thinking, I'm going to get another job and go back to it. But I was never crazy about that business. So
Right.
I decided, well, I'm lucky. I can afford to go do something else that pays a lot less money. So, I'm sort of conflicted.
Right.
I was able to do it because
Right.
I built up a good cushion doing something I didn't want to do. But
Absolutely.
I think a lot of people make the mistake of never walking away from that.
Yeah, I would agree. A lot of people just keep working, and it's like, I know you need to save money for retirement, but at some point when you're way older, what's the quality of life? Like, who cares if you don't have any money at that point anyways? Because I know people are living like forever now with all the medicine, which is great. But if you're 92, what are you really doing? You know what I mean? You don't need any money anymore.
Well, and I think that, and I would push back a little on that and be like, hey man, I'll live to 200 if I can. If there's
Right.
good quality of life,
If
like,
there's
screw
good
it,
quality of life,
Yeah.
but I'm saying if you can't move, your body aches every day.
for sure.
Not
Yes.
not even
Yeah.
to the extent of the people who like have to have diapers and that
Yeah,
type of
yeah,
stuff,
yeah,
because
yeah,
that's
yeah.
just like
Yeah.
at this point, I don't know. Let's see what's next. But
Right. Yeah.
if you can live a good quality of life, keep going.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say I took the cowardly path to doing what I feel like doing. It takes a lot more courage to just decide, okay, this is what I really want to be doing and not have a fallback position for that.
Right. So you really like producing the show then?
I do.
I love it.
I just went to do something that I was interested in that didn't necessarily have to pay my bills. And
Right.
that's the luxury I had.
Right.
And you get to
right.
hang out and smoke cigars and chill with cool
Absolutely.
people, and but that's the thing. It's like it comes down. Like, I think so many people need to get to that point, like that breaking point, where they're like, I'm done. I'm
Right.
done with this. And obviously, it's nice to be able to make the money and then find the purpose.
Yes.
But like you said, if you can do both,
Right.
If you can define the purpose early on and then figure out, okay, what can I do? How can I build a life around this, around who I am? And I think that's the question that eludes so many people is who am I?
Right.
And it sounds so simple, and it's like, well, I'm Steve, I'm John, I'm Susie, I'm whatever. It's like, no, like, who, what do you stand for? What values do you have?
Well, a lot of people also can define themselves by whatever they do for a living too.
Right,
It's like, I do
exactly.
this.
Yes.
And it's like, okay, then it's like, I'm the accountant.
Right.
I'm
Yes.
Stan the accountant.
100%. That's what you do. It's not who you are.
Exactly. Right.
You know what I mean? It's like you do accounting. It doesn't mean that's not your encapsulation as a human being.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? It's like what is it that you actually, and it's a difficult question, especially when you get to the point like Ed did after X amount of years. so many people, and I think the further you get, the more successful you get, the more difficult it is of a question to ask. Because if you're making $200,000-$300,000, even if you're making $50,000 a year,
Right.
steadily, right, to actually have to sit down with yourself and be like, is this the right path? Is this actually not just happy, but like, is there fulfillment there?
Yes.
If the answer is no, it's scary.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Because you're like, now what do I do?
Right.
So many people are just like, we talked about it, like whether we talked about earlier, like people that talk about getting off Facebook. Right?
Yes.
It's like, I'm done with this. And then, a week later they're like, there they are again.
I know.
Because you complain, but you kind of stick around because, well, I'm sort of pulled into this. It's like a bad relationship. It's like and that's why it comes down to again, your identity. It's like, am I the person that puts up with this shit?
Right.
And if you are, fine. But if you're saying you're not, and then you do put up with it, you're going to feel that conflict.
Yeah.
Because it's out of line with your identity.
Right.
It's like an athlete. It's like, I am an athlete. I get up every morning at 5. I'm in the gym. I'm whatever, this and that, because that's who I am.
I think it's tough for a lot of those guys once they retire too, because they're so indulged in it. It's like, that's their life. Like, they do nothing. The off season, they work out towards the season.
Right.
The seasons go on for a wicked long time, especially in like baseball, where the season's almost the whole year.
Right.
So it's like it consumes them. So then what do you do afterwards?
And I think people who are driven don't take the time for any introspection.
Right.
They just
100%.
have all their focus on the one thing.
Yes.
And they just know, okay, this is what I got to do. I got to spend this time. I got to
Right.
go.
Yep.
And they never actually stop to ask themselves, is this fun anymore?
Right.
It's so fun. It's amazing that you say that, because that's literally like, those are the people that I have been focusing on working with and being like, hey, and it takes a lot of courage, like you said, courage, right?
Right.
It's a different approach to be like, I don't know if this is right, but what if the answer is no?
Right.
What if that all-star baseball player wants to like be a house husband,
Right.
and wants to marry some woman who's like kicking ass as an entrepreneur, and he doesn't want to do shit.
Yeah, I want to do that too.
Right? But it's like, if your identity is, no, I'm the person who does this, then that's in such conflict. But if that's a false identity,
Right.
if it's something you've just accepted along the
I
way,
have mad respect for the people who can walk away from a success that is not making them happy.
because
Right.
is it really a success at that point?
No, and you get caught up in it, right? Well, what are people going to think? Well, who
Yes.
cares?
That's-
Exactly. Exactly. At the end of the day, who cares?
Who cares, really? And for me, I had to get to a certain age
Right.
where
Yeah.
I really stopped caring
Right.
about what anyone else thought.
Yeah.
And that's tough.
Hey, I read something and it was like, once you get, I think it was like 40 or 50, it was like after that, no one gives a shit anymore. Like it was actually on Facebook.
It does change, I think, over the course of your life. So,
Right.
I would encourage people who are younger to start thinking that way sooner.
Exactly. Imagine if you could have, something in school or, any sort of perspective early on where you don't go through that.
Right.
And believe me, this is nothing like I think, most adults have reached that thing. So I always I hesitate on saying how things should be, because if somebody's gone through a different path, they're like, what are you, insulting me? Like, I'm obviously not going there. But it's like, what if kids didn't have to have that learning experience they learned from others who said, just like figure it out now, do it now. But we're not cultivating that.
Right.
We're cultivating like and I think less and less now with college and everything, because of the way the world is going. But it's always been like, go to school, get a good job, get married, have kids.
Yes.
And then
no one questions it.
No one questions it.
Because I question college now, because I look at these astronomical amounts of money
Right.
that it can cost to go there, and I'm like, well, like, what's it leading to,
Yeah.
Because it's like, I forget what it was, like 87% of people aren't totally satisfied with what they do.
Right.
So it's like, if you go to school at 18, you pick whatever profession you're going to do for the rest of your life. You get out, you have student loans, now you got to get a job, and then it's like you get down that path, you just start going. It's very difficult to get away.
And it really
Mortgage,
is.
kids.
Hamster wheel is the perfect.
Yeah.
Right.
Just going along without any thought. This is what I do.
And the student loans, the amounts that people are paying in student loans, like, there's your Ferrari payment.
Absolutely.
It's your
Trust
monthly
me.
student loan payment. You know what I mean? So it's
a lot.
or rent, or
It's double my
crazy.
car payment, so
Yeah, that's insane.
It is insane.
Right.
It's
and
pretty nuts.
I think until you reach a certain point, people think that they're defined by the material things
Yes.
that they
Yes.
accumulate.
Yep.
And again, that goes back to what are people going to think?
Right.
Oh, if I have this fancy car, they're going to think I'm successful.
Yep. And there's always I have friends, that make $20-30 million a year.
That's crazy.
That live in an entry level house
Right.
in their neighborhood.
Yeah, because they don't care.
Well, not that they don't care, that there's people that make $100 million a year.
Right.
Or $500 million a year. Right? So it's like if this guy making 20, we look at him and be like, $20 million a year. That's a fantasy world. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, that's obscene.
Right? You can't even fathom that.
You're right.
But if you haven't done it, all you can think about is imagine all the shit I could buy with that,
yes,
right?
yes.
And
Yeah.
So you're completely missing the point.
Right.
You're missing the point, because then you get to 20 million a year,
Right.
and you're like, imagine the shit I could buy if I was making 50 million a year.
Right.
Like that guy, then my
Yeah.
neighbor. And then it's like it never ends.
Well, it's funny. Somebody said to me recently, well, do you have fuck you money?
Right,
I said,
yeah.
well, no, but I have enough money to do what I want to do.
So then you kind of do.
Well, that's the thing. It
You know what I
depends
mean?
who you
'Cause-
ask.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very subjective when it comes to having like fuck you money. Because if you have enough money where you don't have to go to work, or you can just leave your job the next day,
Right.
then what's holding you back?
And
You
that-
don't have to be restricted.
And that's what comes down to the identity, to the purpose, to all this stuff. Like it depends. You know what? Your fuck you money could be $100,000 in a bank.
Mm-hmm.
When you're looking at somebody with $100 million in the bank who's miserable,
Yep.
and you have the fuck you money,
Right, exactly.
Because you still have the freedom, right?
Yep.
You're not tied to all your investments, all your everything that's keeping that guy or that woman bogged down.
Right.
So and I don't want to use the word win or lose, but if you're the one who's like fulfilled and actually happy, and you're like, dude, I'm hanging out all day doing what I want to do.
Yeah.
Like, okay, you have the jet that's parked
Exactly.
for 6 months because you can't use it because you're so tied to your
Yep.
business.
And
What's the
you
point?
know what you see as a recurring pattern? People will make some money and then overspend it.
Right.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
And then they make some more money and say, great, I can buy more stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
So eventually you just feel trapped
Right.
feeding that machine. Okay, well, I got this huge mortgage now. And, stepping back, you got to say, okay, I got this house.
Yeah.
Do I
Right. Yeah.
care about that?
Right.
And I think once you start to have a little introspection,
Yeah.
you start to realize these are the things that are important to me.
Right.
And I think that's the key, is important to me.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why, like, I literally feel like I'm in the Matrix sometimes, like a glitch in the Matrix, because I'm like, whether I'm working with somebody for a year, it's always comes back to that identity.
Right.
And that purpose, and that what is it that's going to make you fulfilled.
Yeah.
Because it's like, you're not going to be chasing, like, yeah, it's nice to have stuff,
Yeah.
obviously,
Of course. Right.
but it's not going to define you. It's
Yeah.
not going to be your end all be all. If you're like, I'm cool, man. Like, I'm happy with this.
Yeah.
Like, if I can get that, sure, yeah. But
Right.
like, I'm good now.
Right.
So it's like, so it's just the people are chasing to fill a hole with something external that can only be filled by figuring something out internally.
Right.
And that goes with relationships. It goes with jobs, with possessions, everything.
And just to go back to like all the money that some people make, I've seen a lot of billionaires have like disastrous personal lives. Of
course.
Like I read a book, I don't know if it was a book or an article or something, and it was a guy who became a billionaire, and he had like 3 wives, like a bunch of kids spread out amongst them,
Right.
like all sorts of different things, like lawsuits and all these different issues. So it's like you made $1 billion. It's like, but your life is a disaster in all these other areas. So I was like, I literally would not do that. If you were like, you can be a billionaire, but you're going to have a bunch of like disaster in your personal life. Like you're going to have 3 ex-wives, you're going to have 9 kids. Like one of them's not even going to talk to you.
Yeah.
Like it's just going to be a mess. I'd be like, no, I'll just keep doing what I'm doing and hope it works out. Like
100%.
you can keep the $1 billion at that point.
Yeah,
because
what's the point?
What's the point?
Yeah. And and I think that does come down to, like, they get so caught up in, and you know what? I mean, it's legitimate. It makes sense. Like, of course you get caught up in the business and the investments and the fires you got to put out. You have, 18,000 employees. I mean, how do you stop and actually figure out, like, oh my God, like what is happening here?
Right.
You go home at the end of the night, it's probably, midnight. You're up at 3 to do some crazy shit or whatever. People are calling you off the hook. Life is crazy.
Yeah.
So
And stressful.
stressful, right? So of course everything's going to fall apart because you never stop. And like Ed said, like, you never reflect. There's no introspection.
Right.
So it's the balance, I think, is so key, And that really, it really comes down to having full control over, what it is that you accept. Like, I'm taking a little bit of time in the morning. Maybe I got to wake up every 20 minutes, like 20 minutes early, whatever, to kind of get in my state, figure out how I'm going to start my day, and then be like, this is what I'm letting in, this is what I'm not.
Right.
Because if you wake up and you're in a frenzy and there's all this stuff going on around you, and you know what? It could be a billionaire. It could be somebody who could be a single parent with a kid.
Yep.
No matter what it is, like, things are going to pull you in a million different directions, right? But like having that foundation, that solid foundation of this is how I'm living my life, this is my identity, this is who I am, this is what I stand for, helps you navigate and helps you focus on the things that are going to serve you, and not entertain the things that don't.
Right.
And of course, if you're at that level and you have to deal with all the business stuff, like, you're obligated. That's the life you've chosen.
Yeah, sometimes some things just come with what
Sure,
you're doing,
yeah,
so
yeah.
you got to deal with that. You can't eliminate everything, obviously,
Right.
but like it's just like, what do I want to do? And then we were saying even before the show, like, in every area of life, then like relationships, like, what is it that I'm willing to allow that I don't
Right.
like? Like, I feel like it would almost be best to just define like what it is exactly you want in each area of life. And I know there's been books and stuff about it, but like monetarily, like from work, from like friendships, from relationships, like, what is it that I want? Like, who do I want to associate myself with, and what are like the most important aspects? Because even I remember Mike Maggs, if you're watching, Mikey Goodboy, he was saying that on the apps, everyone's like the dating apps, if you didn't see it, everyone's always looking for like the next best thing, and it's like so quick these days that you don't like the slightest thing you won't accept about somebody else or about something, like a job, even if it's 99% great.
Well,
you can always find something.
It takes you a long time, but if companies are paying a lot of money, they're buying your life.
Yeah,
They really think now they have ownership of you in every moment of your life.
Right.
Well, especially now with your phone. You're never cut off.
Yes.
It's not like the 50s when you went home and, somebody had to call your house to get, and then it was an emergency.
Yeah, there was a time when I had, I think, 10 different software development sites around the world.
Wow.
So I would get up at 3:30 in the morning to start dealing with Europe.
Right.
And guess what?
Yeah.
The day didn't end because California is going until 8 or 9 o'clock.
Right. I was just going to say, now you got to deal with the West Coast.
I think at that time I had 750 people working for me.
Right.
Yeah, that's crazy.
They all want something.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, that's a lot of personal lives, a lot of emergencies, a lot of
emails.
It's a lot of emails.
A lot of emails.
Yeah. A lot of people to keep track of.
And that's the thing, like, that's what it, and even with the relationship thing, right? It's like, it's defining who you, or what you want, but it's also defining who you are, and it's like, would this person, like, you look, 10 years into the future, and that person walks into the room, and it's like, would this person accept this treatment? Would this person accept this partner, this pay, this whatever, right? And it's like, if that's who I envision myself being in the future, am I making the daily choices required to actually get there?
Right.
So it's I think a lot of people do get caught up on the what.
Yeah.
Like, what do I want to do, or whatever. But it's not, they lose sight of the why, of the who. It's like we grew up learning that, like, who, what, where, when, why.
Yes.
How.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's like we think of it in terms of like a story or like an English class. We never stop and think like, wait a minute, holy shit, like, this plays into my life. Like, who do I want to be? What do I want to do?
Right.
Where do I want to be? You know what I mean? Like, you go through the entire thing, and I think the biggest thing is the why. Like, what is the purpose? What is the reason? People, like, if you stop, and it could be almost anything that you stop and ask somebody why. Yeah. Most of the time, they'll not have an answer.
Right.
Why did you put that on? Why did you wear that this morning? Why did you order that? Why this? They're like, I don't know.
That's why little kids are so infuriating, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Why?
Sun's out. Why?
Right. Yeah.
Why?
But imagine if you had answers. You know what I mean? But and we lose that curiosity the same way we lose that passion.
Right.
Right. It's like, I want to be an astronaut. Why? Because I want to experience things bigger than this world.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, when does that go away? When people start telling you no.
That was a technique we used in some software design. This is the way it has to be. You got to go 3 levels of whys. Why?
Yes.
Let them answer. why.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
usually, if you can't get to the third level, they haven't thought about it enough.
And it's funny you say that. It's a psychological thing, and I'm gonna botch it, so I'm not gonna give an exact. But I think it's 7 layers of whether it's why or something. And like most people, if you get to the 7th layer of the root of why you're doing what you're doing, most people are basically just imploded by then,
Right?
Because they can't go that far into
and you
their
see
reasoning.
the frustration
Yeah.
building.
Yes.
Yeah, because they don't. But I think it's a good thing because it forces you to be introspective.
Right.
If you are willing to do it, to be that honest with yourself.
Right, which is tough.
It's super tough, and that's why most people are just complacent.
Right.
And they wake up one day and they didn't make the call that Ed made.
Right.
They're
Absolutely.
they're basically and especially these days, like, yeah, sure, maybe they're getting to retirement and doing very well, or maybe they got laid off a year before they were going to retire.
Right.
Now they're completely fucked.
Right.
Right. So it's like now what? Now it's like the athlete who broke his leg at 37. Well, who are you? Well, I was this person. Now I have no idea.
Right, and I think a really tough thing for some of those people is they try and keep living as that person.
Yeah,
so that must be tough. I know you've met a bunch of famous people. Have you met anyone like that, where it's like they're washed up, for lack of a better term, and they're still like trying to live the glory days?
100%.
Yeah,
100%. Especially when you go out to events and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and you're like, dude, I'd be at home.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, what are you doing?
Yeah,
like, why?
You're 52. I mean? You were on TV 20 years ago.
Yeah, and you know what? It's not even just about famous people. It's about people that like you look at locally,
right?
That are like, what are you doing?
Right.
Like, I don't know if you're holding on to youth. Like, I don't know, were you going to buy a $700 bottle and pick up a 22-year-old chick for the night? Like,
yeah.
Dude, go home.
And just,
you know what I mean?
Just with that stuff, something I thought about before that I would love to do is like take designer stuff and buy something from like Marshall's, but then say it's Gucci and see if people still buy it.
Oh, I'm sure they probably would.
That's what I'm saying. So it would be like you only buy that name, you only buy the $700 bottle, but do you really love that liquor that's inside of it, or are you just buying it because of the name that's attached to it?
You can get that $700 bottle for $30.
Yeah.
If I walk 10 feet down the street right here.
I've got a friend of mine that really loves Rolex Daytona watches.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. Love it, right? And I don't know, it's a particular one. They all have model names and fancy stuff. And he went and bought a fake.
Right.
A very good one.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it was $1,000.
Oh,
right?
wow.
And I said, so who are you trying to fool? He said, absolutely no one. I like the way the watch looks. And if people come up and say, I like your watch, he says, yeah, it's fake.
Interesting. Yeah, and that's
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he liked the look of it. He wasn't going to spend the money, although he could for the real one. So.
Yeah,
and it's an important point I think to make, is that the people that are doing it to project something or project an image or whatever, again, because they're not secure enough in just, this is where I'm at, this is what I'm doing, this is who I am, you know what I mean? Like, cool, no big deal.
No, I like that confidence. I like the watch. I bought it.
Right.
I bought a fake one because
I
like it.
Because
I
like
it,
right? Yeah, just like it out there. Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's somebody like that is going to be happier than someone who bought the real watch for 20 grand or whatever.
Now can't buy groceries.
Or was doing it to impress someone,
right?
Or to come across as cool in a certain way, maybe, and didn't get the validation they wanted, because that type of validation that really matters can't come from external forces.
And within a month, they're thinking, "Why did I buy this?"
Exactly.
Stupid thing?
Right.
It's like I don't feel any differently about myself than I did before.
And then it's worth way less. So I used to sell cars. As soon as you walk off the lot in a brand new car, the value goes way down, because now you have to tell somebody else owned it before you.
And that's why it's so much. It's like you're smarter to get something that's lightly more reasonable, lightly used, and I think that's a little bit different in relationships, but it's.
Well, you're not going to get a brand new one.
No, you won't. You're right. That's true. That's a good point. But don't always be trying to upgrade to the newer model.
That's true.
Right? Yeah. Like Mike was. You mentioned Mike Maggs, right?
Yep.
From a couple weeks ago, it's like people are always looking for the next best thing.
Yep.
And it's such a problem when it comes to, I think, relationships, because nobody's just. And I really, really think, like, if you need that validation, I'm going to say it again. It goes back to that identity and that fulfillment, right? Because it's like, why would you need that proof that, I can go out and pick up some chick or some guy or whatever? Why would you need that? If you were secure in yourself, secure in your relationship, you wouldn't.
I was just going to say the answer is you wouldn't.
Right,
yeah.
Right? So it's like, that I think is such a big reason why, relationships aren't lasting.
Yep.
People aren't staying in their jobs.
Right.
Now, the job thing is different because, like, companies are laying you off and everybody's all over the place these days or whatever. But, like, the relationship thing, it's if you're not always searching, because you haven't done the work yourself, right? Like internally, of course you're always going to be looking around for somebody who's like, oh, the next person who has this is going to make me feel better. I'm going to, get this, get that. It's the same concept as externally chasing a material item,
right?
As it is to chase a relationship, to try to prove something to yourself that you can only get from within.
Right. All right, and you actually wrote a book on relationships, right?
I did.
Put it out there. It's on Amazon, right?
Yeah, it's called Unlocking Love. You can search from my name, but it's called Unlocking Love. Keys to finding the love of your life, even if it's you, because it's about that internal relationship.
There you go. Check it out on Amazon. All right, guys, another great week. Next week, I have my friend Pat O'Leary coming on. So he's going to talk about fatherhood and how about 5 years ago, he was throwing parties in his dad's business, and now he has 2 kids under the age of 2. So it's going to be funny. Make sure you check it out. Everyone like, subscribe on YouTube, share it on Facebook. I appreciate everyone tuning in. See you next week.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, or callers of this program do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe, the United Podcast Network, its partners, or affiliates.